This is my DBQ writing workshop. I chose to do A Changing Society. It's about the Gilded Age. What I found that was really interesting, instead of doing a traditional DBQ, the ones that we've probably done in school, I did one that was on Engage New York. That's more of a inquiry document based assessment, and there's actually different kinds of things the students can do, like create cartoons, and they don't necessarily have to write an essay at the end, but for this purpose of this lesson I did have them write an essay at the end of this activity. So I chose the Social Studies Resource Toolkit 8th grade Gilded Age inquiry, and the question is greed good? So this kind of gives you like a basic outline of how the activity would work. It's suggested to do it over multiple days, and it has a supporting question for each set of documents and then a formative assessment that's at the end of each of those. And that kind of prepares you for that culminating activity for the summative assessment at the end. And just to give you an idea of kind of a justification of what each element is for of the toolkit, I found this really interesting from the Engage site as well. It gives a purpose for each element of the toolkit. And then, so you can understand how we get to the lesson for today, I want to tell you what we did in the previous couple classes. So class 1, we were introducing all of the tasks and then kind of getting started on that first supporting question and some of the documents. The second class, we would finish up that first one and start the second one. The third class, we would finish up the second and then start the third. And then the fourth class, the class right before the one we have today, would be finishing up that third question and then kind of reintroducing that summative assessment. And then we get into filling out the graphic organizer. So prior to this class, they have a lot of evidence that they can use to put in their essay. And then we also determined a thesis statement before this class. So that leads us to today. So today is our DBQ writing workshop, and it's a mini lesson on introductions. I always found the introductions were the hardest thing in any kind of essay to write, because it kind of gives you that, it kind of prevents you from being able to start writing your essay without it, and you need it, and it's important, and it's the first thing somebody reads when they read your essay. So we're going to be working on breaking down the most important elements that should be in a DBQ introduction. And then obviously the extension, or I guess the summative part of this, is going to be the essay writing that will finish the next class. So my learning target is students will be able to write an introductory paragraph that goes beyond a restatement of the task and the historical context and includes a thesis statement that demonstrates an understanding of the task question. And these kind of give you the overview of the conceptual understandings that I took from the curriculum. So it's 8.2, A Changing Society, and then these are the two components, subsections that the lesson addresses as well. So the beginning of my lesson is a ticket in the door where they are filling in this graphic organizer. They're going to draw it and fill it in, something that they've done a lot. So it's kind of repetition. So that way when they get the exam, they'll be able to draw this filled in graphic organizer and feel comfortable to be able to remember all those elements to get as many points on that rubric as they possibly can. So the middle of my lesson is going to be that actual mini lesson on DBQ, writing that introduction. So I would connect the DBQ organizer to the knowledge from their previous lessons. So they already know about that organizer, and now we're kind of breaking down those elements of the introduction. My teaching skills would be what to include and what to avoid in the introduction. And then to actively engage the students, I would have them identify the components in an introduction exemplar. So they're given an introduction, and then they have to identify what was discussed in the historical context. Did they address the task? And then also identify that thesis statement and making sure it's just one sentence. It's at the end of your introduction, and that it really answers the questions that were given in the task. And then the link is going to be the skills that they learned today are going to allow the students to begin writing their introductions using a quote from a document and explaining how it connects to their thesis statement. And then they're going to use that rest of the class, besides the last 10 minutes, to actually write their introduction. So they're going to write their introduction, get as far as they possibly can. Hopefully they're pretty much done, as we've already identified the thesis statement, that they can just do that historical context, that quote, and that task. And then at the end of the class period, we're going to do this peer review to get out the door. So in this task, they're going to get with a partner, and they have a checklist of what's supposed to be in the introduction, and they're going to read each other's and make sure that they have all the components. The hook wasn't a actual something they had to do, but it was something that would elevate your writing. So that would give you, an additional kind of point. So writing a hook using a quote from the document with analysis and proper citation, historical context and task analysis that goes beyond a restatement of each, and then the claims that will be introduced in the body paragraphs, and then that one sentence thesis statement at the end of the introduction that answers all parts of the task. So the differentiation for this assignment, I wanted to make sure that students are using their assistive technology. So it is a one-to-one classroom for everybody, but those that get accommodations such as speech to text, getting the text read, using the prediction tool to help them spell, and then also looking up definitions. And then if students needed additional assistance as far as that organizer, it can be hard because there's not a lot there. So I would give them some scaffolding in the form of sentence starters. And then also providing a list of transitional phrases really helps as well, because it kind of breaks down categories of when to use them. This is an idea of a rubric that I would use to grade their final product of their essays, just to think forward to the next class period. And I even actually could have them probably self-assess themselves. So that is the end of my DBQ mini workshop. Thanks for listening.